Okay, I'm going to, can we cut this off at 3 o'clock since I have a 4 o'clock haircut
What time
appointment?
is it?
It's 3:20. It's 2:20.
2:20.
Mm-hmm. It's
Sure.
40 minutes.
This way you can talk a little more loudly to
Mhm.
make sure it gets picked up.
Okay,
Good point.
Yeah.
so is that still Jonathan's camera, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice of him.
Yeah, I've taken it to a couple Atlanta Hawks games and just taken some tape of the games.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then just watched it later to see if I could pick up moves.
Are you going to make captions of a dunk shot relating to our marriage?
I don't think there've been any dunks in your marriage, actually.
You haven't dunked me yet. Well, maybe underwater, yes. How's your knee? When do you get your MRI?
Well, I got it, and Jonathan said the knee looks fine. There's still a little bit of inflammation,
Uh-huh.
and the pain I'm feeling is probably just scar tissue that formed while I was not
Oh.
using it very much.
Yeah.
So I just need to do a little therapy to.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so that's good.
Good. Oh, that's
Yeah.
good to know.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay, well I just started it, so
Oh,
and I can erase anything like I said, but
oh, it's recording now?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Well, let me
You're
say-
live.
Le-
Live from
Ready,
St. Charles.
Mr. Dale. No, I think I didn't say much about Mike's birth.
So
we
do you
said-
remember
we
when
said-
I was
we-
born?
Yes, I remember it
Yes.
very well.
Approximately. Give or take a month or two.
We were so tickled, Mike, to have you, and as you
We
know, I think
we
I
still
said
are.
yes, we still are. That's right. But let's see, you were actually due November 11th, and I went into labor on the 12th, the next day. So you were pretty much on time. And Dad was at work, and I called him that I was having labor pains. So he came home, and after a while, we went to the hospital when the pains got a little closer. Being the firstborn, I had a longer labor than I did, especially compared to Chris. But anyway, I had a long labor and went over to Mount Carmel Hospital, which doesn't do, I don't even know if they still have a hospital anymore, on 6 Mile. And they didn't allow fathers in the labor room.
That of course, is in Detroit.
Right, in the labor room. So, as it's just so different from today. And since I had a long labor, they told Dad just to relax and go home for a while, and they would call him when it got near. So they did. They called him back, and we had a beautiful baby boy named Michael Patrick, and we were so delighted. And Dad got to hold him right after you were born. And then we were put into a room with, I still remember my roommate. Their name was Smiley, and they had a baby boy also. So we had a nice time together. And in those days, they kept you in the hospital for 5 days. So now it's down to 3 or 2 or something. So it's a big change. And you were an excellent baby. Remember, we did have a foster baby first, and that kind of gave us a warm-up. So we knew pretty much how to handle you, even though you were our firstborn. So.
In repeating, that's when we thought that perhaps we wouldn't have our own kids. We had a feeling that something wasn't going, so we should not count on having a family. So you were especially a vital gift.
Yes, beautiful baby boy. And you were always so easy. I mean, you were just a very easy baby, which was wonderful to have for your first child. So anyway.
That's until we got into the problem of WYT.
Yes. Oh, we forgot that.
That is, his teeth were a little typically protruding, like most kids. So we didn't do the braces bit. We went to a lady named Mrs. Torianen, who had a practice called myofunctional therapy, where you would do drills, exercises to so you would not be pressing outward with your tongue. And and then you got a story on yourself in Detroit Free Press because you had this unusual therapy.
Because I had a father with media connections.
Yes, and yeah, Dr. Gary Hall, our dentist, recommended therapy because your teeth were being pushed out by your tongue, and he said even if they put braces on you, the minute braces came off, you would push your teeth out again. So you needed to correct your tongue muscle, which is the strongest muscle in your body, by the way.
Let me write that down.
So in everybody's body, not just your body. But you had to do these exercises where you had to, you probably remember, where you put buttons on a string and you had to pull it up with your lips to make your pucker power, she called it, stronger. And
All around the house, even on backs of toilets, he'd be walking in there and he'd see the reminder sign, WYT, where's your tongue? And we searched for it and found it.
And actually, I mean, it was a tough therapy to go through. You were in 4th grade and 9 years old, but you cooperated fully. You were very easy. And I forgot my train of thought. Anyway.
I think it shows that he was disciplined even in those days.
No, at night we had to tape your mouth shut.
Oh, I
because
remember.
we wanted you to breathe through your nose and not through your mouth. Because you were walking and you
I
always
think
had
they
your
were,
mouth open.
it was like curler tape or something like that, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. It
Remember
was.
one time we forgot to take it off and the teacher called from school saying, is there a problem?
No, and actually when you started studying Japanese and you moved to Japan, the people in Japan told you that your accent was very good, and for a Westerner, for Japanese, and you said you wondered if it was because of your myofunctional therapy. You know, it could have helped
Could be.
that. Yeah,
Could
and you
be.
had to use your tongue differently.
That's
so,
interesting.
Yeah. So,
We should
Okay.
talk, as you pointed out in your note, perhaps about the move from cold Detroit, Plymouth, Michigan to Atlanta. Maybe we didn't do too much on that. That was the only out-of-state move that we made, and it was something to really deeply consider, but the Ford offer was too good to pass up, so there we were, all of a sudden in Atlanta, Georgia, y'all.
Yeah, I think we covered a little bit of it because I remember your boss asking you,
yes.
Michigan Tom.
yes.
Michigan Tom would consider a move.
Yes.
So I think we covered the move, but we didn't cover all the 30 years since then and your
Right.
close relationships that you've made, friendships you made in St. Jude's and St. Pius and Dunwoody.
Mm-hmm. Well, you were in
No.
8th grade. Kathleen you were finishing 8th grade because this was March of '83. Kathleen was in 6th grade, Chris in 4th grade. And Kathleen and Chris had to go to Austin School. They couldn't get into St. Jude's. But then, I think we may have mentioned Judy Jo Jenks and that.
Let me throw in that at one point I'll never forget. Mike and the principal of the school
That's
entered his
it.
7th grade class.
8th grade.
8th grade. And Judy Jo Jenks, the Southern-born principal, said, Mike, tell me again what they taught you in mathematics in Plymouth, Michigan. And you relayed what was taught. And she said, okay, I got the picture. You teach this side of the room, and so will teach that side of the room. So she was very impressed by that Our Lady of Good Counsel education.
Anyway, and then we had applied for you for both Marist and Pius, knowing they were the only 2 Catholic schools in Atlanta. And you got waitlisted at Marist because they didn't have many openings. And by then you had made friends with people at St. Jude's who were going on to Pius, David Stiers and the twins.
I'd like to throw in
The
something.
Lacey
on that.
twins.
Yeah, the Lacey
That
twins.
comparison. I went over to Marist and I went over to Pius and walked around and talked to people, and I really got the feeling that Pius is a very warm school. I'd go down the hallways and listen to what kids were saying between classes, and they were on the ball and pleasant, and we thought that would be a nice place to land, and it turned out to be outstanding.
Anyway, so then, because you got into St. Jude's, then Kathleen got in 7th grade. She started 7th grade there, and Chris got in 5th grade. And although they were starting to get settled at Austin School, but after being at Good Counsel, which was pretty strict and traditional, Austin was an open school then, and they were just surprised at all the talking and sometimes the way the kids talk back to the teachers too. That was a real surprise for them. But
What about the new job? Was it at all difficult to transition to a field office where you weren't around a lot of people?
That's a good question. It was an adjustment for sure. You're pretty much on your own when you're 700 miles from Ford headquarters in Dearborn, Michigan. So it's a lot of doing things that you think are appropriate to publicize the people, the products, and the plants of Ford Motor Company, and to answer to the news media if there's a problem with something and come up with a statement explaining it. But with Ford, regarding myself and assignments, I really was a little bit gifted because we really didn't have bad years. So the Ford thing was great, and it taught me probably a little more independence, where I didn't have to ask someone sitting six feet from me what I should do. I had to figure out on my own what's the best thing for Ford.
and you have to travel a little around the Southeast.
Nine states of the Southeast. I go there arranging Ford news conferences with new cars, and also bringing them into the Ford Atlanta assembly plant, where we'd have a 10 or 100 news media. If there was a new Taurus making its debut, the Ford people have always been one of the highlights of our life, frankly. It's a great company to work for, and the products are fine too. I would start any Ford news conference at the Atlanta assembly plant by making an offer to any news person present. If you've ever seen a cleaner assembly plant anywhere in the world, we will buy you dinner for two at famous Bones restaurant. And we never had a taker.
It was considered a premier factory. Well, and Mike knows.
I worked there.
He worked there.
It was
yes.
clean. It was clean.
Yes. That was an adjustment, wasn't it?
It's hard work.
Yes.
Mike would come home about 2 a.m., take his t-shirt off and wring it out from all the sweat from working the summertime to get money for Notre Dame.
For Tokyo.
Tokyo, right?
Yes, after he
Yeah.
graduated.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think going back to St. Pius, I think that was a great choice. All of you did well there and made some nice friends, and I think it was a well-rounded education because you had a lot of diversity there. Some African Americans, and probably not nearly what the public schools have, but people from lower economic backgrounds, I think, were there, and higher. And at that time, you were able to play tennis and basketball, and as well as Kathleen was in gymnastics, and you and Chris played tennis and basketball.
Cross country, of course.
Cross country, and Kelly did volleyball, and she did some track. And
The school prides itself on getting every student involved in something outside of just scholastics. So it's a great opportunity, but learning about teamwork and attitude about winning and losing, etc. And there were always good teams at that school also.
Kathleen and Kelly were both cheerleaders also, and Mike was editor of the Ragnarok magazine, as well as doing some drama his senior year, singing in the rain, and he did Shakespeare. But the big play at the end was Guys and Dolls, and that was just so much fun. I mean, I think he enjoyed it, but we really enjoyed watching him. And I made a few costumes too for the girls. Now I don't remember her name, not Sally, the
Teresa?
Yes, Teresa.
Mhm.
Yes, for Teresa.
We examined and we researched back 23 generations of our family, and Mike was the only thespian. So,
Oh, but all of you got involved, and it was a school where you didn't have to be the top. Now it's so competitive, and Marist was competitive at the time, so it probably would have been hard for you and Chris to make the tennis team there. But at Pius, you were able to do that, so you really did a lot.
there were other things about the big move to Atlanta, Georgia also. Mill Glen Swim Club, we realized that most of the people in the Atlanta area would belong to a swim and tennis club. So there was one in our neighborhood, so we signed up, and that made still more friends that we kept many years. And there's something called ALTA, Atlanta Lawn Tennis Association, that had us playing organized tennis. My partner would dispute my use of the word organized for several years. I've been doing it 30 years, so it's good for us and a good way to make friends with the new environment as well.
Yeah, Mill Glen was really the social thing for us in the beginning to meet people. In fact, we were just in there a few months and Dad volunteered us to be social chairman. I didn't know anybody, but I learned fast.
Do you remember when you first moved down here, things that might have surprised you that were different from Detroit or Michigan? Obviously, we all noticed the southern accent a little bit. We probably don't notice anymore.
We took a trip with you kids to show you the new environment, and it was March, do you think? But there were a couple
No, it was
inches,
after that. It was
couple
in the
inches of
summer.
snow on the ground, and we were a little bit surprised. So we went to my office area and out in the parking lot.
Oh, that's when we moved in, yes. There was some snow.
We were surprised to see that. Now, leaving where they have the Michigan 20, 30 inches of snow per year, we come down here where they have 2 or 3. So we had to cherish the 2 or 3 when we tried to do little outings with the snow.
Excuse me.
The climate. I remember getting here and going over to Mill Glen Tennis Club to see what it looked like, and there at 11 p.m. there were
Excuse
guys
me. I'm
in.
gonna need my water.
I'll get some water for you.
Yeah. Sorry.
I'll talk while you're gone. I'll talk about your drinking problem.
I'll be like Marco Rubio.
I'll just take this as an opportunity to...
This new view will hide my second chin, so it's worth the move.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I just developed a cold, so.
A cold in the south.
Yes.
So I went over there a few blocks from our home, 11 p.m. I see 4 or 5 guys playing tennis in the winter time, and I said, my gosh, this is just incredible. So under lights, there they are, and we didn't have to pay fees for playing indoors because everything is outdoors. So that was a climate change.
It sure was. I think you and Chris and Dad especially thought you had died and gone to heaven because you could walk around the corner and play tennis whenever you wanted to, instead of having to drive to the Y in Livonia or
You could play
other
golf
places.
the day after Christmas. You could go out and hit the ball. And of course, we didn't do that often in Plymouth. There are strengths and weaknesses of each locale, and we show that we still love the North because we have developed ruts in I-75 as we drive up there 3 or 4 times a year, 750 miles, and we'll do that this week again for Uncle Jerry's 80th birthday. So we go up there often, and we have many friends that are long-lasting friendships there.
As you know, when you guys came up to celebrate our 50th anniversary, so our old time friends.
What about St. Jude's when we initially started going there? What were your initial impressions, and then how might they have changed over time?
Well, I think overall, our move to Atlanta, I think we were fortunate because people were many in the St. Jude area and Dunwoody area were from other places and a lot from up north.
Transplants.
So they were very friendly and inviting. It just took a number of years to make deeper friendships. So it was a little hard, especially for me, not so much for Dad, but
Did you spend a lot of time on the phone at first?
oh, sure,
Yeah.
yes. And I was carpooling 4 kids around, and Chris was playing baseball. You were doing activity. Everybody.
But I mean,
so,
keeping in touch with friends in Michigan. And
oh,
everything.
keeping in touch. Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
The
Yes.
beginning, yeah.
Yes. I think we wrote a lot of notes saying it's even nice to drive the freeways here because there are so many trees and stuff. It's very pretty, and even though it got hot in the summer, so that was a trade-off a little bit. Sometimes it's a little too hot, but we still have 4 seasons, which we really like. Spring and fall are beautiful here. So.
Our first visitors from the north, our family, was
Mhm.
Carl and Mary Donna and Karen Daly Shea and Kirk and Lizette. Kevin.
Lizette was in the picture.
My
yeah.
point is, it was for Thanksgiving, and they were saying that's the first holiday away from home of Plymouth, Michigan.
Mhm.
These guys are just trying to make roots, and they're going to be a little lonely, so we will make that 700-mile drive to have Thanksgiving with them. We really enjoyed that and appreciated it.
Very much.
Well,
Yes.
one surprising thing, Karen didn't know
Yes.
what to expect in the South
In November.
in late November, so she brought her bathing suit.
And it was cold and rainy. But actually, she spent a lot of time in your bedroom because she was going to Michigan State then and had a paper to write. So she was upstairs in your bedroom using our whatever kind of computer we had at that time. Because laptops were not invented yet.
I think it was called a manual typewriter.
Probably a brother typewriter or something like
It
that.
probably was. Yes. But we all laughed when she brought her bikini. Thinking she was going to go swimming in the South. What do you remember about going around? I think the first summer we decided to take a trip to South Carolina. We made like a big circle. And we went to South Carolina, to Columbia, we went to Hilton Head. We made a big circle to take a look at what was going on in the South. And I think you kids all enjoyed that. First few years we always went back to Michigan for Christmas because Kelly was only 3. So it was hard to take all the Santa Claus gifts back. I think we had a minivan and we really packed it tightly. And one year for Christmas, Jerry and Nelda were going to be gone. And so they offered us their house, so we stayed at their house. And another time we stayed in the O'Connell's house behind us. They were going to be gone. So we probably went up for Christmas the first 4 years that we were here. We'd go up skiing up north too with Carl and Mary's family and Jerry and
I would tend to think, and do you
Notice.
agree, that we probably over the 30 years or so in the South make more trips to see family and friends there than any Atlantans we know.
absolutely.
Nobody does what we do, and it does show that we are close to family, and they are something to cherish because we look forward to seeing them.
We have friends here who are from Chicago, and they might go up once in a while, but we still have a lot of family there, and I don't think many of them do, but even so, they think we're crazy with all the driving we do. But we were the ones who moved away, so we were the ones who have to go back. Yeah,
Yeah, you've worked hard at maintaining all those relationships.
right, yes.
I don't know if we mentioned one of the links here that we've enjoyed is the church folks we met, both the average people, but also the priests here. Did I tell you the Father O'Connor story? I was out with him, our pastor, on a golf cart for a parish outing, and halfway through he said, "Who made your irons, Tom?" And I said, "Father, I have no idea." He says, "Huh."
You kids gave them to him.
So I got out of the golf cart, went around, read the brand, came back. I said, "They were made by so-and-so." He said, "Wow, that is a good brand. You really should be golfing better." Irish humor.
Yes, he was great.
He was great. Huh? Yeah.
Yes, and well, we also, when we were in Michigan, one thing we haven't mentioned yet is Sanibel, and we started going there when a friend of ours at Ford told us to go rent his condo.
Of course, that means Sanibel Island, Florida, near Fort Myers.
Mm-hmm. So we rented his condo 7 years. I think you were 8 years old when we started, and then next door, a new, well, it was a renovation of new ones anyhow. So Kelly was 10 months old. I remember she had fallen on the bathroom floor in the Harris condo we were renting, and she had a big scab on the end of her nose. But we went next door and we bought 1 week timeshare at Cassibel, and we still have it, and we enjoy it, and you kids come down when you can. But we also brought lots of your friends down during different times.
You know, here's something that I think Mike mentioned earlier in his thinking about doing this video for future generations to see what the heck we were all about, and that is the matter of aging. I am this day 75 years old, and you are 20.
Almost 73 in a couple of weeks.
73.
Yes.
Anything you want to say about aging? We came here when we were 40, and now...
I was 40, you were.
Oh, thank you.
You guys, you really never
42.
complain about minor maladies or arthritic pain or anything like that. Do you not
Stick
feel?
around.
You just keep it amongst yourselves? Or?
Actually, we're very fortunate.
Oh,
we
my
have
arm.
those things. Yes, Mike with his MCL injury right now. You don't complain either. I've had 2 hip replacements. Dad tore his quadricep tendons and had to have surgery.
Dad is living on borrowed time.
Dad also.
We had we say tennis is all fun, but I was playing with Chris and 2 new neighbor guys at 10 p.m.
Joe Zhang and Pat McGreevy.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I dived for a short, wide ball, trying to return it. Chris says, "You didn't dive at a short, wide ball. You tripped over your own feet." The upshot was,
Which he did later.
so serious, although
Yes.
we didn't think so at the time, subdural hematoma and brain surgery 2 hours later, which was frightening. That shows how important it was that they did it so quickly. The good thing is there's no after effect. The good thing is there's no after effect. The good thing...
Okay, gotcha.
It was serious, and Mike in Tokyo
Yes.
asked Mom on the phone, "Should I come home from Tokyo? Is it that serious?" And she said, "Let's see how the surgery turns out, and then we'll decide."
We were very,
And then,
very
yeah, it all turned
fortunate.
out really well.
It did.
But you were quite young then at that point.
This
Aging.
happened.
45 or so.
Yeah, 45. Yeah, younger than I am right now.
Uh-huh.
Or
But you're right about growing old. Old, is that the word?
Yes,
Yes, it
we're
is.
getting older.
It has been pretty smooth, largely because the family is so close-knit, and we can focus on them and keep our ties alive to the great north as well. So we have been fortunate, and not everybody has been that fortunate, of course.
No, we've been very blessed. And we still play some tennis, not as much as we used to. And we try to walk a few times a week, and so far so good. So Yeah, everybody has some aches and pains, that's for sure.
You probably have lost some friends and family members along the way.
Yes.
Is that something you never get used to, or do you kind of get used to that as you get older?
Pat Heigl, my sister, now deceased, once said that the past year for her and Chuck, her husband, was a real bad one. I said, what do you mean a real bad year? She said, we lost so many friends. Well, we have lost several, but not as bad as Pat found it, I believe.
No. When you have lost a sister and her husband, I've lost a brother, a sister-in-law.
Dave.
Right. David Daly, David McCarthy, husband of my sister Anne-Marie, and Nelda, wife of my brother Jerry. So, yes, I don't like this stage in life for those things. And we just lost a friend last week who was such a good guy, and I don't know if you get used to it, but you just know it's going to happen more frequently
Especially
now.
when he was exactly my age, too.
Right.
Dennis
Who was
Crane.
that?
Dennis Crane, a good friend from church.
He's very similar to Dad's personality. He never met a stranger either. And his wife Marie does pretty much what I do. We just kind of slowly walk on.
You know, we've lost people in the family, but the remaining spouse has adjusted well and found a happy life afterwards. So they were fortunate also.
Mm-hmm.
Caroline remarrying and Anne Marie remarrying and
Right.
and
Jerry remarrying, who he denied he ever would, but 5 years later, he found a really nice lady, and I think they're very happy, you know. So it's nice to have that companionship. Even though he was very busy, he found a nice lady to share his life with. So.
I can't think of more about
So
aging.
if anything happens to me, just don't marry a bimbo, okay? Mike, watch him.
We got it on tape now.
Okay.
Attention all bimbos.
Well, how about an impromptu question then? How about you each name 2 qualities in the other
Oh my goodness.
that you've really loved, over the years, and have appreciated,
With
as
your
time has
mother,
gone on. Yeah.
It's kindness and attitude. At a typical challenging day at work, I would always call home once a day, and no matter what was going on at work that would cause us consternation, there was this voice on the other end that was always upbeat. That's not to say that she's a little light, because she's not light, but it's just that she always had things in perspective, and that was her voice and her upbeat attitude, and she takes after her mom, that I love very much, and her dad, who was a wild man of humor, and so those are the 2 qualities I would say in Corinne. Is it Corinne or Corinne? I can never.
That's nice.
You'll get it right one of these days.
Yeah, another 75 years.
You know, I talk about Dad never meeting a stranger and kind to other people. And when we were dating, we were at a party, and I didn't really know anybody much, but there was one girl who was sitting all alone, and he left me to go over and talk to her. And
I hope you explain this one.
yes, went over to talk to her, and then I think he brought her back to me and introduced her, but he brought her into the crowd a bit, and I thought that was a really nice thing to do, and that's how he is with other people. He always tries to talk to the people who don't get talked to very much, and I think what attracted me too was his sense of humor, his play on words, and kindness, and he was affectionate and loving, and to both of us, family was the most important thing, our children, yeah.
That's nice. Thank you for answering an impromptu question. Yeah, just talking about his friendliness, I just remember sometimes when we were traveling on vacations and we'd get off the I-75 for a restaurant break.
Uh-huh.
I think once or twice he invited a stranger to eat with us, who might have been by themselves or something like
He
that.
did.
It was nice.
Yes.
It was awkward for us, but it was a nice gesture.
I know. Well,
Well, I left him with the bill.
actually, he is a lot like my dad, and I guess sometimes they say you marry somebody who's a lot like your father, women anyway, in some respects. And, well, you don't sing that well, but other than
No,
that.
nobody does.
You probably drink a little less.
Yes, probably, yes, I'm certain about that. But the sense of humor and the play on words, and it was so similar. And my dad and Tom really enjoyed each other. I think he almost understood my dad's sense of humor even better than my brothers did. So they were on the same wavelength. In fact, later, I forgot this, my dad had to have a leg amputated, and then he had to have his larynx removed. He got cancer of the throat. And so he would talk with a vibrator. You probably remember that. And he was living with my sister, Anne Marie, and he'd want to tell Tom a joke over the phone. So Anne Marie, you couldn't hear him with his vibrator, so Anne Marie would have to relay what my dad was saying. And every once in a while, he'd tell a very off-color joke, and my sister would say, "Dad, I'm not going to repeat that." Remember?
That's a good point. I remember Grandpa, he had a lot of health problems for the last number of years, you know.
Yeah, just the last couple of years.
Couple of years, but I mean, he
He's
probably
in great
suffered a
health.
lot. But was there any silver linings in all his, suffering? Did it bring you guys closer together
his
at all?
attitude stayed strong.
Yes.
It was never a pity party.
Never.
Never, let's talk about my problems.
Yeah.
He would just light up the pipe and grab a beer, and he wouldn't realize anything was going on that was troublesome.
He was very upbeat and cheerful and accepted his afflictions with good humor and courage too, I would say, grace and courage. He was, I think he didn't want to be a burden on anybody, and he lived with Anne Marie and Dave for a few years, and she said because of his cheerfulness, it was easy to take care of him. If he hadn't been that way, she doesn't think she could have handled it, everything that she had to do.
He used to tell the story when he was a young man, very young. He was a caddy at a golf club in Jackson, Michigan, and once he was carrying the clubs, and the guy teed off, and they picked up their clubs and started walking, and the man said, "Ted, where'd my ball land?" He said, I don't know. He said, "I had it sighted, but it was under a cloud, and the damn cloud moved."
He had a good sense of humor.
Yes.
Yes, yes. And my mom was a sweet, wonderful lady.
I don't know if we talked about her in the first part of this tape we prepared, but I used to kid her by saying that her fried egg sandwiches were the best in the world. I just can't believe how good your friend. Oh, Tom, stop that. And then you get into another matter with her. Did I tell this?
I think you did about buying masses. I think
NASCARs.
you mentioned that.
We got that covered.
Mm-hmm. She went to St. Mary's College for 2 years, studied music. I don't know if I mentioned
We covered that.
or not.
Yeah,
Pardon?
we covered
Okay,
that, yeah.
good.
Yeah.
But her family was the most important thing to her too. So anyway, is there anything else about growing older?
I don't think so.
We've been fortunate with our health and
Oh, we're talking about, should we mention this?
what?
We're talking about burial. And
Oh, gee.
we bought a plot in Northville, Michigan, because we lived there a year or so, and in
You got a
Plymouth,
discount.
nearby, so we got a plot there, and we're inviting all you people in future generations to come and stop by.
I will, but I won't stay too long.
Actually, it was so funny because we somewhat moved to Atlanta because Dad was in a midlife thing and had been working for Ford for a long time. And he said, I don't want to grow up, live and die all in the same place. So we moved to Georgia. Then once he got to Georgia, he said, don't bury me in Georgia. I want to go back to
I don't
Michigan.
want to be lying there in red clay.
Actually, so
You know, when you're younger, you look at elderly people, and you think they're wise and all-knowing.
But then
Well,
you
now
talk
that
to
you're older,
us,
do you feel wise and all-knowing? Yeah.
no, especially in this social media age.
that's a good point. Things have changed so much. Sometimes for the better and sometimes not so much. We frankly won't get into things like government, but we worry about our kids and their kids in the future. I think the best years for our country are in the past.
Oh, no.
No. I hope that's incorrect. But we have been
Our
involved.
children and grandchildren will do good things for our country.
Individually, they sure will.
Mm-hmm.
We get involved a little bit in government matters, like Mike, helping him in a small way when he was a candidate for city council in Atlanta. And I go door to door for presidential candidates and all.
You worked on Bill Bradley's campaign, right?
I sure did,
Yeah.
you bet. I flew to
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire to go door to door there because even he was of the other political party. I thought that as a person he was a good guy, so I attempted to help there.
No, we voted for both. We're
Ambidextrous.
And my dad used to always say he voted for the person he thought would do the best job, and whether it was Democrat or Republican.
He liked Ike, right?
Oh sure, Eisenhower?
Yeah.
You bet.
He was
Yeah.
running when I was in high school because I remember people wearing I like Ike buttons.
For some reason, I just remember your dad talking, or you talking about your dad and Ike
Yeah.
one time, but I can't even remember who he was running against at this point.
I don't either. And
Adlai Stevenson. Adlai Stevenson of Illinois was the opponent to Eisenhower, and Stevenson
we liked him.
made a lot of points with voters because of one photo in Life magazine where he crossed his feet like this, and people could see that there was a hole in the bottom of his shoe. And they said, if he takes such good care and he's so thrifty, and when he gets a shoe repaired, maybe he would be good for our economy. So one photo of a shoe went all over the country, and people said it's a new way of looking at this candidate, Adlai Stevenson.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Yeah. My dad had definite views on politics, and he would voice them occasionally, including mayors of Detroit and all that.
I think he liked boxing a lot too, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
He used to...
Joe Louis was a Detroit
Oh, that's a funny story.
fighter, right?
He
Yeah.
was Detroit, he
Yeah.
was good, and the time that he won the heavyweight championship in the world, this Detroiter named Joe Louis, my sister Pat rode her bike around the neighborhood, one street after another, yelling Joe Louis, who happened to be African American. Joe Louis, she said at age 10 or so, he's my uncle. Because I guess my parents had told her he was your uncle. So people looked up and didn't know quite how to explain it to my sister that was
Now,
unlike.
was your mom playing a joke on her by telling her he was?
Sure.
It was your mom who told her?
But mom or dad, probably
Yeah.
They teased Pat about that for a long time.
Did we ever talk about the things, the minor flaws of our kids?
What?
We don't have any flaws.
No.
Remember,
And neither do their spouses or our grandchildren.
didn't we have one minor goof for each child?
Oh, you mean